Because this is called Cereal Talks with Josh and Ben, but today it's going to be Cereal Talks with Josh and Adam.
Oh, so we have to eat cereal while we're talking?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's like a lot of pressure.
Hey, thanks for watching Wait, what is it called again? Hey, thanks for watching Hey, thanks for watching Cereal Talks with Josh and Ben. Today we have Adam with us because Adam is a member of law enforcement. I'm not going to tell you what because I don't want you to go and find him. I don't want you to send him flowers because his wife, she's amazing, and we don't want any confusion going on there. Sure. And he's one of my good friends. And today, with everything going on, one of the things we want to do on this show is make sure that we are bringing you biblical perspectives for what's happening in culture today. And so that's one of the things that I'm having a hard time with is when you say things about cops being bad and being ridiculed and throwing it into cops, it's like cops are not robots. Cops are people who make choices. Right. And so Dr. Martin Luther King, he said, it's easy to hate people from afar, so move in closer. And so that's what this is about. Okay. This is about moving in closer to you, Adam, my friend, who is a law enforcement agent. No, not an agent.
Superstar? I mean, I don't know.
I did want you to feel at home.
Oh, okay.
My sister is a law enforcement officer also. She says that you guys do actually enjoy donuts.
I was like, no donuts?
Yeah. She actually calls them power circles.
Yeah, power rings. Yes.
We don't have to eat these right now, but I do want you to know, in case you just kind of felt like nervous or anything like that, you could just take a look at them and be like, they're there.
I feel more at home now. Yeah, I just appreciate the fact that they're there.
Exactly, and that's what they're there for. And you can take them home. We can gift wrap them.
It's like an edible table ornament.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're going to ask Adam a couple questions just about him, and then we're going to talk about the concept of critical thinking because I think it's really important for what's going on today. So Adam.
Perfect.
Here we go.
Thanks for the cereal, by the way.
Of course. I mean, it wouldn't be Cereal Talks without it.
Cereal Talks, I like it.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, but it's little CE, real. Cereal Talks. Yeah, I
don't know if you saw the mind get blown.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. It was under a hat.
It happened.
I did see the hat move.
There was mind blownness.
Favorite movie?
Ooh. See, that's tough because I love movies. So to just pick one, it feels like picking a favorite kid. Which everyone has, but you're not supposed to say it out loud. No, I'm just kidding.
If you were to have a movie quote that would define your life.
So, one quote that just encompasses it all?
Yeah.
That's hard. How about one for work and one for home?
Go.
All right. The one for home you already said as soon as I said gladiator. Are you not entertained? I mean, that's my 100% job as a father is like, what do I need to do next to entertain? Because it never stops. As soon as you're done with something, right? Like, as soon as you're done with something, it's like, what's next? Yeah, because then they're like, well, I know we just watched an hour of that show. Can you play a game with me now? Yes, I can. And then after the game, it's like, can we do this? You said that you would. Yeah, 5 years ago, I do remember saying that I would do that at some point. So yeah, let's do it right now. And then when it's done, it's like, can we do more? And you're like, are you not entertained? You know? So that has to be the home one.
Favorite cartoon as a kid?
Favorite cartoon as a kid? Ooh.
Like, just first thing that popped into your head. Because I have a couple of them that would pop into mine.
So my favorite cartoon as a young man was not like a Saturday morning cartoon. Probably like Naruto, which isn't like a Saturday morning cartoon. It's more like an anime, but that's like the cartoonish thing probably that I watch the most of, that I enjoy the most of.
Okay. Favorite music artist?
Oh, for favorite all-time ever, probably Justin Timberlake.
Okay.
And then I love Incubus. And I really like Mayday Parade. They're a group, so I don't know if that's like an artist, but they're like an indie punk or indie pop kind of group. They're not very mainstream. Look them up, Mayday Parade. You'll like it. Christian music, I really love Reliant K in a group called May. M-A-E, May. Very good.
What style is it?
I don't even know. They have like a guy that plays the piano, but then like some of their songs have a lot of guitar.
Accordion.
They might. They do some weird stuff. They might have some accordion. Right. And then another Christian artist.
Did this.
What is that? The accordion?
Accordion. They have little things on the side.
Oh, the buttons. Oh, yeah. You're right. There are buttons on both.
It's impressive to see how many buttons there are.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. And then Torrin Wells, that guy, Torrin, if you're watching this, you. I was gonna say that guy, but if he's watching, that'd be rude. Be like, I'm right here. So
here I am.
Right. My son is 11. He is a good drummer. He is hilarious and
he's really funny.
Yeah, and he's very smart, which probably ties into the humor a little bit. But he loved to read all the time. And he has an amazing memory. Yes. Yeah, he'll tell us stuff from when he was like 2 or 3. He'll be like, "Remember that one time?"
Like, I don't remember that one time.
And then, every once in a while you can draw it back. You're like, no, they saw a home video. That's how they remember that.
Yeah.
Or they saw a picture of my phone and that, and so they just think they remember. No, he'll pull out some random stuff. Yeah. And they're like, that did happen. Yeah.
Yeah. My oldest is that way too. I'm like, how do you remember that? Because I don't remember that. Like, remember we went on vacation? I was like, you were 2. How do you? Yeah.
My daughter's 7. Everyone thinks their daughter is like the sweetest, but I'm actually right. She gives the best gifts. She makes like homemade gifts all the time. Super sweet and just obnoxiously hilarious to the point where like you have to tell her to stop, especially when other people are around. Because I've never really cared like too much what other people think. But as soon as you're a parent in public with your kid, all of a sudden that's like at the forefront of your mind. You're like, everyone's looking. Like, what? If you just said that, they're gonna think that like at our home we just let you do whatever. So
you've never done this before in your life. You want to do it now?
So her best talent is like pushing that envelope in public. That's got to be hers. But hilarious.
The very fact that people are able to riot and it doesn't get crazier is because of the fact that law enforcement is out there.
There's a line that's drawn.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it creates. Even for the people that are making things crazy, it creates a sense of safety that I don't think they even know is there.
Right. Like, for example, I've seen people that were part of, I don't want to say protesters because they actually were part of rioting, which I don't want those two things to bleed together because I think protesting and rioting, different things.
Not the same.
Right. Those are different things. But I do believe that I saw, I think 2 days ago, there was some video clip of a lady that got hit with something. I don't know if it was a brick or what it was. But she went up to the lines of law enforcement that were there to, protect the people and the establishments. And she's like, I got hurt. And they opened the lines, they let her in, they got first aid to come over to her. So, I mean, it's not, so I see what you're saying, yes.
Yeah. So why did you go into law enforcement?
I went into law enforcement because I'd done multiple jobs before law enforcement. I worked for like 10 years as an adult in the workforce before I went into law enforcement. And one thing that I believed law enforcement was going to have was every day would be different. And I was right. Every day you have no idea what's going to happen next. You don't know what kind of calls are going to happen, what kind of people you're going to encounter, the kind of stuff you're going to see.
I like that laugh.
Humans, like, if you've ever gone somewhere to a mall and like people watched, if you want to turn people watching into like a career, like law enforcement is maybe for you. There's other things that go into it, but that's definitely one of the perks. So I thought it would be different every day. It was. Also, acts of service, or like if we're talking love language, acts of service is my love language. So really, I have a career where I get to do acts of service all the time. And so it's fulfilling for me, which I think is important in whatever career you end up choosing. It has to be something that gratifies you to where like you feel like you go home at the end of the day, you did something.
Yeah.
You didn't just punch the clock and survive another day. So that's probably the main reason I got into it and why I can't imagine doing anything else now that I've done it.
Why do you think critical thinking is important in not just what's going on today, but just in general life as teenager, if you're a teenager, if you're an adult, whatever. Why is critical thinking important?
Tell me what you're talking about for critical thinking. That way I know that I'm answering right.
Yeah, so I would say critical thinking is the ability to take a situation, take what somebody said, take something that you've seen, and not either jump to a conclusion or to assume that the first thing you heard or saw is correct.
Okay.
That you can take it, you can weigh it, you can see different sides, pros and cons, and then come to a conclusion that is probably somewhere in between those two things.
Okay.
That is probably going to be the most effective for things getting accomplished or for things benefiting, the world around you, yourself, whatever it may be.
I would say the most important thing about critical thinking is the thing that we all face no matter what when we're in any situation is we have a certain context that we view it as. When you show up to a situation, if you weren't a part of the situation before you got there, or if anything transpired before you got there, or if anything has happened in the past that led up to that, if you just got there, you don't have any of that context. So critical thinking helps you step back and try and think of things from other views, like, is there a contributing factor to this? Did something else happen? Because you could show up and somebody's standing over somebody with a knife, you know, and the person is unconscious, and you're like, oh, that person did something to that person. But you have no idea, really. You know, that could be a first good assumption, but really until you critically think and think, what else could have happened? What do I need to do to figure those things out? What happened before I got here? But it's not just law enforcement, it's every situation I feel like you can do that in. When you hear someone say something and it offends you, do you know what context they were even saying it in? Right. Did you hear the whole conversation, or did you walk by someone and catch one sentence? You know, and even if you did hear the whole conversation, we all have our own set of experiences, our own lives that shaped us up to that point, that gave us certain thoughts or certain beliefs about things, and those are all different. Right. So that person might have said something out of their experience and out of their whatever's happened in their life, and so that might not be yours. But if instantly you think, well, that's wrong, that's incorrect. Is it? Right. Or is that just not your experience with it so far? So it's not just law enforcement, it could be anything. It could be not getting offended when people say stuff. It could be not just believing something that you hear because a news agency chose to report it.
Or it sounds right.
Or it sounds right. If people say something that sounds like it should be true, that doesn't mean it is true. If a news agency says this is exactly what happened, okay, maybe it is. And maybe that's the gist of it. Or maybe it's not. Right. Do you have the rest of the context? Did the news agency have the rest of the context? Where did they get the info that they put together the story? I mean, whoever wrote that story was a human. Right. That human has a set of biases, implicit or explicit, and they have a set of experiences that they grew up with. They have beliefs. They might believe one way or the other. And if you don't think that biases, beliefs, or agenda or anything will bleed out when you're trying to tell a story or express a viewpoint about something, you can try and be as factual as you want, but at the same time, it could be a fact to you, but it's still your experience. It's still... So I feel like context, in one word, is probably the biggest importance for critical thinking. Is it helps you get context.
Yeah. I think it's important because the Bible actually talks about, in Hebrews 5:14, it says that we are supposed to train our senses to discern between what's right and what's wrong. And it actually has that concept of like, what, not just like morally right or wrong, but I would like to say it's and the way I kind of see it is, where is God at? Is God here, or is God here? Is God somewhere in the middle? Because we look at things and we go, this seems right. This seems like the right thing to say, the right thing to do. Right. Everybody's saying it. Everybody's doing it. But if we don't stop and take a step back and go, okay, what are you saying? What are you doing? Is this actually right? Then we just get swept up into a way of thinking. And if we don't have any solid basis for that, then it's kind of like, well, whatever everybody else is thinking, that's what I'm thinking. And then your life is basically lived off of somebody else's interpretation of their own life. One of the examples that I saw recently, a friend was talking to me about this, was this whole thing going around ACAB. Have you heard about this?
I think so.
Okay.
Fresh my memory.
Well, it's all cops are, and then it's a bad word that I'm not going to say. All cops are this. And then they go on in this explanation to say, well, if your brother or your dad or your cousin or whoever is a cop and they're not a part of the system, then we're not talking about them. But if they're okay with the system, then we're talking about them. And we're going, but then you can't use the word all. You can't say all cops are this, except if you're this. And so instead of having a critical mind and going, wait a minute, if I say that, then I'm talking about you. But then they go, well, we're not talking about Adam because Adam's not this way. But you said all. You know, it'd be like if I said all pit bulls are mean. Right? And they go, except if they're nice. Well, then you can't say they're all mean. Right. And so we get this mindset of like, well, I'm just trying to support this. I'm just trying to help these people. And it's like, well, no, because you're hurting these people now. Right. You're not critically thinking about what the words are that you just said, and now it's having an effect on something that is that it's hurting you because we didn't critically think and go, wait a minute, all cops aren't, so we can't say all cops are.
Right. The best way to quell anything like that is a quote that I heard a very wise person say from Star Wars, and they said,
"Only a Sith deals in absolutes."
Don't even worry about the fact that that statement is an absolute. It was not spoken by a Sith. Don't even worry about that. The point is,
only the Sith always speak.
Right. The point is it's really difficult to know everything.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's accomplished it yet. So what I usually say to people when they're so locked in on I know this 100% is I always say this: do you know everything in the world? 100% everything. Which can anyone truly say yes that you're talking to? No. Right. So they go, no, I don't. And you go, okay. So if this is a pie graph and it's 100%, how much percentage of everything there is to know in the entire world, out of the knowledge, stuff that's happened, out of everything, how much of that percentage do you think you know? And then, maybe they'll say 2%. That's probably even generous considering how much info is out there. So you got this pie graph of 100% of everything in the world that there is to know, and you just admittedly know 2% of it at the most, and then I just proposed the question, is it possible that in this 98% that you admittedly don't know, that there's something that answers this question or that points to something else, that we could be erroneous in our ways or we could be wrong about this? Or so it's, of course, if they don't want to hear reason or logic, then they don't want to hear that argument anyways. But when people get really locked in on I know this, it kind of helps to be do you? Right. Step back. So for people in any sense to say all of this is this.
Right.
Really, I don't think those statements are ever accurate because it'd be hard because there's always some type of exception. But when you're talking about law enforcement, all of them are this or all of them are that. There's not a lot of professions that are screened as thoroughly as law enforcement officers. There are not a lot of professions that are, I don't want to say micromanaged because they're not micromanaged, but they are scrutinized as much as law enforcement. There's not a lot. Every time I have an interaction on the street that could be considered a use of force, I have to do a separate report apart from my report just about my use of force.
Right.
If I got a certain amount of those use of forces in a 1 month or 3 month period, now that goes to a review board built with officers, citizens from the. And if I got more the next year, then they would rehash everything they've already said was okay and relook at it. We are so scrutinized, and it's not a bad thing. No. I understand why the system's in place, but people act like those things aren't in place.
Gotcha.
And they're this person can do whatever they want, willy-nilly. They're not going to have any repercussions if they do something wrong. But really, we're in a place where we can't get away with anything if we wanted to.
Right.
And then you'll hear about people oh, well, that guy got caught doing this after however many years. He got caught. And then they're going to get tried as seriously as anyone else.
Right.
Because if I'm working right alongside someone who turns out later to have been acting like this, but doing this behind everyone's back, you don't think that person just went against everything that all their brothers stand for? You don't feel like we want that justice? The reason we got into that or try and uphold our job so much is because we love justice. Right. Most people have an inherent, longing for justice. People in law enforcement, that's what they do.
Right.
Which is why it can kind of feel jaded when you're doing law enforcement and the same people that, you took in for something are out the next day doing the same thing to someone else, looking for a new victim. And you're I just did this yesterday. I guess I'll go try and build this case against the person who I just built a case against. And, it can kind of feel like you're getting jaded because the system, but it's an imperfect system.
Right.
It's the justice system we have. It works very well, and it errs on the side of finding people innocent instead of finding people guilty because they do not want to run the risk of convicting innocent people. It still happens every once in a while, but what happens a lot more than that is people that did do something, their case being dismissed.
Yeah.
Or, things like that. And then it's set up that way, and people say, well, that's not right, that's not justice. But it's set up that way on purpose because it can't be 100%. The only people that know what happened is the people involved, and if they're humans, they have their own contextual restraints that we've already talked about.
Right? Yeah.
And then, God knows. So unless God wants to show up to every municipal court hearing and be this person did park in the wrong parking spot, You've heard it from me. That's the end of it. Unless he wants to do that, which I think he's more busy than that. We're not going to know 100%.
Right.
So we have this broken system. The good news about the imperfect, broken system is that it's continually getting better. And if we don't think that it's working, there's avenues to discuss why it's not working and how to change it. We live in a country where we have the means at our fingertips.
Yeah.
We can reach out, we can show up to meetings, we can make our voice be heard, especially if it's a lot of voices.
Yeah.
If a lot of voices want something changed, it's probably going to get changed. Once it's the majority, like it's going to get changed at some point. It's very hard to keep things from being changed if the majority wants it changed. But that energy needs to be focused in the right direction. If all those voices are yelling things that are not answers to the problem, then the problem's not going to get answered.
Right.
If they're just yelling about a problem that they think exists, nothing gets changed. But if they can focus all their voices towards, here's some solutions, let's work toward
I think
these.
it's about the solutions.
We're in a system where that works. We're in a system where they change the laws every month, every year, toward trying to get them more fair or, in better in every regard. So we're really fortunate to be in that system.
Yeah.
And I feel like we just don't utilize it as much as we could, especially when something happens and it hits mainstream media and we have the whole guilty by public opinion thing that happens. And I get it, whether a person's guilty or not guilty, social media doesn't dictate that, but in a sense, they dictate it in everyone's hearts.
Right.
Because if it's being construed as this, then everyone already thinks they know, because they have that context of, I know 2% of it, but that has to be the way it is.
Right.
So those people that are involved in there are going to have a day in court. They're going to bring every piece of evidence they can against them. If the court system looks and goes, more likely than not, they did this, beyond the shadow of a doubt they did this, then the person's going to get convicted. If the court can't say that, then they won't. But that's the system we have.
Right.
But if they think that nothing will happen, that's not the way it works. Something happens. But we have a voice and change in that. So I think we're really fortunate to live in the system we're in.
Yeah, I agree. And so I want to encourage you, as you, as we're in the time that we're in, as you're looking at things, to start thinking critically about what you see. And I want to encourage you with this. Number one, listen. Don't just listen to one side. Listen to different sides. Because listening to different sides allows you to come to more likely what it actually is. When you listen to one side, you're only going to think one way. Inspect what's being said. Does what they say sound good and just look good? Or is it actually, yeah, that's a fact. That's a real thing. This can be backed up with facts. This can be backed up with, corroboration of different things. And then pray about it. Ask God what his opinion is on this. What do you think is going on, God? God, what do you say is happening? And then allowing those different things. And again, listen. Listen again. Listen to God. Listen to different sides. And use your common sense. Okay? The more that you really start thinking critically and use your common sense, the more you're going to get better outcomes for your life, for your interactions with people, your relationship with people, and thinking in a way that's going to help. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the Cereal Talks. I appreciate you. I love you. And be safe and enjoy.
Do you have a bag
donuts
for these?
You know what? They're already in a container right here. We're just going to cover those up. And if you need a bag, though, because law enforcement officers like bags, we'll find you one.
We do like gear. It has to be black, though. It's not tactical.